and the USDA has been conducting risk assessments as it considers reopening the southern ports. Undersecretary Dudley Hoskins says the department has employees in country monitoring the situation.
Collectively, the information, the surveillance, the trapping, all the data that they're pulling, that is so instructive for us to know just from a risk assessment perspective. Are things changing? Are they improving?
He tells Brownfield there isn't one specific trigger that would allow trade to resume.
I think it's more holistic about what the facts are telling us on the ground.
But as of right now, Hoskins says
we're still in the position where we're not entertaining a deliberative decision on port reopening today.
I'm Megan Grebner for Brownfield.
An ag economist.
This is Network Indiana. I'm Ryan Hedrick.
There is a threat for severe storms on Tuesday, focused mainly across the northwest part of the state.
That's Mike Ryan at the National Weather Service.
Wednesday, we may see that retreat back to the west into Illinois and then see some additional chances across the state on Thursday.
And he says all threats are on the table, including isolated tornadoes. Oil prices rising again this morning. AAA says gas in Indiana is about $3.94 a gallon. The national average is $4.12. Police in Indiana arrested a woman accused of stalking musician Lindsey Buckingham, formerly of Fleetwood Mac. Police say Michelle Dick was taken into custody Saturday at a hotel in Fort Wayne. She's wanted in California on stalking and assault charges. Police say Dick stalked and harassed Buckingham and his family over several years. A domestic situation turning fatal in Indianapolis early Sunday morning. Here's Jarrett Lewis.
Shots going off at a home on Indy's west side just after 12:30 in the morning Sunday. As a result, a man is in the hospital and his daughter is dead. IMPD is calling it a targeted attack.
We believe that these two individuals were targeted by another person or other people, but we believe it's isolated to just these two individuals in this house.
IMPD Captain Don Weilhammer said the father was able to identify the suspect. Police said the man in question is a convicted murderer with a history of domestic violence and drug convictions. Jarrett Lewis, Network Indiana.
The Indiana Pacers lost last night 133-121 to the Detroit Pistons, ending their season that was plagued with injuries. Head coach Rick Carlisle.
We're into a long summer, which will be different, but probably needed to make sure that we can fully recover from all the different things that have happened, the ailments.
The Pacers ended the season with 63 losses. This is Network Indiana.
Chris is my baby. Out of 3 children, he was my youngest. When Chris died, it was devastating and it was very sudden. There was a staff member from the Indiana Donor Network who talked to us about organ donation.
Cheryl and her family learned that her son Chris had already said yes to being an organ donor before he died.
I was so proud of him. Chris was able to save a life. Knowing that there is a lady that is alive with Chris's liver, that is just totally amazing to me.
Be a hero. Save a life. Say yes to organ donation. Learn more at donatelifeindiana.org.
I miss him a lot, but I know he's in heaven and I know he's making an impact there as well.
Hi, I'm Chris Strange. You know, I spent my whole career in law enforcement right here in this community. I started as a university police officer and moved forward through city, county, and state agencies. Ended up as a lieutenant with the Washington County Sheriff's Department. I've learned that protecting community starts with listening to the people who live here. Washington County is my home. I've also had a chance to manage our county park, working with families and seeing firsthand what makes this place special. With my experience in law enforcement and my background as a master's degree at business at Oakland City University, I'll work hard to keep our community safe, and I'll be responsible for your tax dollars. I truly appreciate your vote for sheriff on May 5th. This advertisement paid for by the committee to elect Chris Strange, Nancy Strange, Treasurer.
Kicking off a damp forecast for the Hoosier State this week. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin with Hoosier Ag Today's Indiana Farm Forecast. We've got scattered showers and thunderstorms popping up over the state today. And honestly, we've got chances of rain in at least some part of the state each day the rest of this week. The best way to look at this, I think, is on a week-long basis. Today through Friday, 1 to 2 inches of rain likely across 80 to 90% of the Hoosier State. We'll probably push pause on this Friday afternoon and then go into Saturday with a dry outlook. But rain's coming back Sunday, and I think rain's going to be dancing around the region most of next week as well. The difference, though, it's not as much next week. Even though the rains are around, we might be able to put some back-to-back drying days in next week in a regional kind of outlook or on a highly localized outlook. I also want to send up a flag that says it's going to get cold late in the month here again. Beware of that. I'm Ryan Martin.
A major boost for Indiana FFA and the ongoing push for lawmakers to pass an updated farm bill. I'm CJ Miller, and this is Hoosier Ag Today News. A major investment is set to transform the future of youth leadership. Indiana FFA has recently received a significant boost from Lilly Endowment Incorporated. The funding will help modernize the main lodge at the Indiana FFA Leadership Center near Trafalgar in Johnson County, paving the way for the next generation of Hoosier Ag leaders.
And we was able to get $500,000 in a match grant, so that means $1 million is going to go back into this facility. We do have some work to do on that because we do have to raise $500,000 in order to be able to receive that match grant.
And that's Lisa Shadon, Executive Director of the Indiana FFA Foundation. The matching grant will fund a multi-phase project aimed at not only modernizing the facility, but also improving accessibility for all students.
The main lodge, which is one that we're focusing on for this grant, was built 50 years ago. And so we know that there's a lot of infrastructure things we need to do to not only just bring it up to standard and make sure it's a safe place, but also to make sure that we're ADA accessible, making sure the current standards are in place. And construction is going to be starting as early as this winter.
She says the main lodge is the centerpiece of the Indiana FFA Leadership Center.
You know, when we have our FFA conferences here, that building is the #1 asset that we use. Because of that, it gets the most use. But we also know that the restrooms, the wiring, the HVAC systems, all of those things, which some of it's behind the walls, you don't really see it, but it's stuff that we definitely need to bring up to standard.
Shadon adds that the matching fundraiser is now underway.
One, you can go online at inffa.org. There's a place that says Give Today. You can click on that. It will take you to a part of our website that specifically says something about the Lilly Endowment Match. Give to us electronically, or you can always drop a check in the mail and send that to the Indiana FFA Foundation, P.O. Box 9. Trafalgar, Indiana, 46181.
You can also find that link to make your donation to the Indiana FFA Matching Grant Fund at HoosierAgToday.com. Will lawmakers on Capitol Hill ever get around to passing a bill to allow permanent year-round sales of E15? Better yet, will lawmakers ever get around to passing an updated farm bill? Greg Allen has more.
Producers continue to face elevated input expenses, with fertilizer cost remaining a key concern despite some moderation in other areas. At the same time, several ag-related policy efforts in Washington remain unresolved. A nationwide year-round expansion of E15 fuel is still pending, a move many corn growers and ethanol advocates say would boost demand and provide market stability. According to Michigan Senator Elise Lotkin,
the farmers need relief because of the tariffs, right? There's a bailout package now on the table. They're able to try to get some access to some of that money, and unfortunately they're in that situation. E15 is an easy way for our farmers to have new markets. It's also good environmentally. I mean, it's like a win-win. And the only reason we haven't gotten it done is because big oil and gas doesn't like when E15 is put in that gas pump.
Lawmakers have also yet to pass a modern 5-year farm bill, leaving farmers without updated risk management tools and long-term certainty.
It's years out of date at this point. We need to do that. And then, of course, USMCA or NAFTA right on the horizon. Got to make sure our farmers don't lose ground and, in fact, gain ground in any new updates to the agreement.
Read more at HoosierAgToday.com. I'm Greg Allen.
And I'm CJ Miller, Hoosier Ag Today, Indiana's Farm Network.
Hi, this is Wes Bowers, and I'm a Republican candidate for District 2 Commissioner here in Washington County. If you're anything like me, you're tired of the way business in our county has been conducted. Whether it be improper procedure or a simple lack of communications, things rarely seem fair to the average person, but appear to benefit a few that are in the right positions. I believe that my 12 years in the Marine Corps, coupled with the last 15 years owning and operating my own business, have provided me with the leadership tools necessary to help steer this county in a fair, positive, and fiscally responsible direction for everyone. Let's get away from the career politicians and the so-called way it's always been mentality and work for a county that actually benefits everyone. Again, this is Wes Bowers, and I would greatly appreciate your vote.
If you would like to know more about Wes, please find him on Facebook at Wes for Commissioner, paid for by Wes Bowers for Commissioner.
Spring cost and stalled policy priorities are adding new pressure on America's farmers this planting season. This is Hoosier Ag Today. I'm Greg Allen, inviting you to join us for a holiday vacations tour hosted by Hoosier Ag Today Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. You'll explore the Canadian Rockies, Vancouver, and Victoria this September. For more information, visit holidayvacations.com, keyword Ag Today. A nationwide year-round expansion of E15 fuel is still pending, a move many corn growers and ethanol advocates say would boost demand and provide market stability. According to Michigan Senator Elisa Slotkin,
E15 is an easy way for our farmers to have new markets. It's also good environmentally. I mean, it's like a win-win.
Agricultural groups warn that the combination of high costs and policy gridlock is complicating decision-making on the farm as producers head into a critical time of the year. I'm Greg Allen.
A major boost for Indiana FFA. I'm CJ Miller, and this is Hoosier Ag Today News. Indiana FFA has recently received a significant boost from Lilly Endowment Incorporated. The funding will help modernize the main lodge at the Indiana FFA Leadership Center in Johnson County, paving the way for the next generation of Hoosier Ag leaders.
And we was able to get $500,000 in a match grant, so that means $1 million is going to go back into this facility.
And that's Lisa Shadon, Executive Director of the Indiana FFA Foundation.
The main lodge, which is one that we're focusing on for this grant, was built 50 years ago. And so we know that there's a lot of infrastructure things we need to do to not only just bring it up to standard and make sure it's a safe place, but also to make sure that we're ADA accessible.
Read more and make your donation to Indiana FFA at HoosierAgToday.com. I'm CJ Miller, Hoosier Ag Today, Indiana's Farm Network.
This is Hoosier Ag Today's Monday Farm Market Preview. Joining us, Brian Basting, as we get set for a new week. Uncertainty, of course, is nothing new for farmers. That continues. But in addition to all of that, we have uncertainty remaining in the Middle East situation. So plenty to keep an eye on there.
Uncertainty is prevalent and will continue to be prevalent for quite some time, we think. I guess the key is that there are tools available for producers to turn uncertainty into opportunity. And that really involves having a disciplined marketing plan, defending their balance sheet by keeping the downside protected, but leaving the upside open. And there's various tools that producers can use that, but it's entirely unpredictable about what's going to happen here, Andy, and what the effect on markets will be. We saw that just as the Middle East war broke out there at the end of February, what that did to the markets. I think that's going to be with us for a while.
Brian Basting there, and I'm Andy Eubank. Hoosier Ag Today, timely, relevant, credible.
It started on a Valentine back in '53. A little station with a big heart, loud and clear as could be. From front porch talk to Friday nights, from hometown pride to stadium lights. Through changing times and changing tunes, one thing's always been true. Happy birthday, Wslm, 73 years strong again. From the street house to the hometown sound, you lift this whole community up. Turn it up, let the good times play. Here's to love on the airwaves. Happy birthday, Wslm. This one's for you, our friend. From local news and weather calls to game day dreams and championship halls, I Purdue, Friday night lights, racing engines, big league nights. Through every voice and every cheer, you've always been right here. Happy birthday, WSLM, 73 years strong again. From the sweet house to the hometown sound, you lift this whole community up. Turn it up, let the good times play. Here's to love on the airwaves. Happy birthday, WSLM. This one's for you, our friend. 73 years, local loyal love. Happy birthday, WSLM. The heartbeat of our hometown. Still our heart.
This is a very special day.
All right, good morning. It is time for Coffee Club, and we've got Wes Bowers in the studio, and Wes is running for commissioner, and we have Brad Gilbert with us as a co-host. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning.
Good morning, Wes.
Hey, good morning, Wes. Yeah.
This is a paid political program, so today we're going to hear all about Wes, and this is your first time running for office, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
What made you decide to, what made you say this is the time for?
You know, I've been asked that question a lot, and there were so many things I saw happening that I didn't agree with. I just felt like, you know, somebody needs to stand up here, and I didn't see anybody else doing it, so I did, and that's the long and short answer of it. I know it's not the sexy one, but that's pretty much it.
And I listened to you were on, I think, one other time before this. Was it once or twice?
I've been on here
a couple times.
two or
You're
three
talking
times.
about you have a background in the military. And you are in construction.
Yes. So I graduated here in Salem in 1999, and then 2 months later I was in San Diego and spent the next 12 years in the Marine Corps, moving all over the world. And then whenever I came home, we've been in some manner of business or construction for, well, ever since 2011. Me and my brother, we currently own Lyle's Construction, based out of Salem here. We're general contractors. We do all kinds of stuff. Currently we're building a lot of homes. We do a lot of dirt work, do a lot of concrete, residential and commercial mechanicals. I mean, the list goes on. But yeah, it's kind of where I come from.
So you've got a lot of good background experience that would be helpful as a
absolutely. Well, and that's what I tell everybody. They say, well, why are you running for commissioner? I said, you know, well, had I been a cop, then I would have ran for sheriff, but I'm not qualified to do that position. So, you know, this is what I know. A lot of what the commissioners deal with, and a lot of the places that our money goes is into these projects. And I think that having somebody there that understands how to manage projects, manage project budgets, understand the things that go into them, the labor that's required, and all the stuff that makes the world turn on that aspect of things, I think is a positive, because we haven't, in a lot of cases, we don't have that. So what ends up happening is, you know, you do your best to hire an engineering firm, you do your best to bring in other people, but you're still taking their word for it.
Sure.
So I hope you pick the right guy. And when you're dealing with, at times, millions of dollars of taxpayer money, you better be right. because that's where the problems come from. That's when people get upset.
Sure.
So I feel like I've got a very diverse background. I feel like I've got a very solid base to be able to walk in and attack a lot of the things that they're doing head on.
So when you're talking about, you were looking around and some of the things that you see, the deficits, so to speak, in the way things are going and the leadership that Washington County has had, from a standpoint of is the project or projects, is that the main thing that you feel like the commissioners as a collective body have not been doing as well as they could, or is that the biggest part of what brought you know your experience running a business and knowing projects and stuff like that, or were there other things that added to that?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that go into that. I mean, if you what is this, 2026? I've been in business for myself for 15 years, very successfully. And in order to do that, obviously you have to know how to run the projects. You have to know what goes into it. But there's also a large people element that comes out of that. You have to understand from an HR perspective of how to deal with employees, what makes that go around, what all's entailed, because there's a lot more there than what people truly understand on the whether your company, whether your governmental side. And I'm just talking basic business now. But it's more than just, oh, this person makes an hourly wage, get out there and do your job. There's a lot more on the backside from a tax standpoint, from a liability standpoint, from an insurance standpoint that the common person may or may not know, and maybe they do, but it's stuff that you deal with in business all the time. And I think you develop over the years too, especially if you're successful in business. You develop a demeanor that allows you to deal with people in the right manner. You're used to people coming to you with problems. You're used to having to work through problems with them, and you can do it in a way where generally those people walk away happy, or at least satisfied with the answer that you're giving. And I think that that's been another problem that we've had, and that we've gotten away from, not just as commissioners, but I mean, you could talk about any government here. I mean, you're sitting on the council. It's happened there. It's happened with the commissioners. It's happened with the city, and people forget who put them in the chair. And then when these people have, that one problem, that might be the only time in that person's life that they've ever approached somebody in their local government, but they look to you, they trust you to fix that. And if you can't fix it, you at least owe them an explanation of why you can't fix it, or why it's part of a bigger picture. And I don't see that. I don't see that, and I'm not just speaking on the race that I'm running in, but I don't see it across the board. I don't see people saying, yeah, I'll sit down with you for 10 minutes here, tell me about what you got going on, because we get lost, because you get in these positions and you're sitting up here and you're looking out over a county as big as Washington County. It's got, 25,000 people in it. There's a lot of problems. Well, you have to remember that, when that person brings something to you, that is the most important thing in their life at that moment. Exactly, and it's your responsibility to treat it as such, and you need to give every person that comes to you like that the proper time. And
I think that's a good point. Just as you may not be able to tell them yes, you may not be able to give them what they need, but people can handle they can handle a little bit of bad news or not getting things or going their way with honesty, transparency, and having those tough conversations. And I think for the most part, a lot of people are afraid to do that. And then that constant cycle, it does build mistrust. So transparency is important, and I'm not a big fan of that word, I think, but
I despise that word.
It's like, it's just having honest, candid, open conversations.
Yes.
And so, where do you think that you would fit into, how would you approach that, just changing the culture and kind of as a council, we started just using us since I sat on the council. We've started letting more people, not just on the agenda or whatever, ask questions if there's something that comes up during our meeting.
Yeah.
So we do let people ask those questions, and I know there's been some concern and that the commissioners function a little bit differently. Now, I'm not a commissioner, so I'm not telling them how to run their meeting or anything like that. I am not. I'm just saying, in the overall scheme of things, how beneficial is that to let all the taxpayers, if they have a question, ask questions or be approachable one-on-one? How would you handle that?
Well, I kind of feel like they've paid their rent to be there. I mean, I've seen in prior meetings where, and I'm not just telling this to the race that I'm in, but where I felt like people sitting up front, whether they be elected officials, whether they be representatives of the county, have almost talked down to the public. Mm-hmm. They ask a question, oh, that's dumb, or we don't have time to address that, just move on. And then we've seen where the 3-minute rule, yeah, where that was implemented. I mean, that's ludicrous to me. It really is. You have a conversation with the person, you air it out, and you move on. And it's your meeting to control. So if it's something that you need to say, hey, can you bring me these documents and can you talk to me afterward, and I will look into it. And that's the problem right there, is they don't trust their elected officials. The people of this county have no trust in their elected officials. 40, 50 years ago, they did, because they knew that they could call John or Steve or Bob or whoever was sitting in the seat, and I've got a problem. And they'd talk about it for a few minutes. Well, let me see what I can do. And sure enough, he would make his phone calls to whoever needed to be involved, and it would get fixed. And that's how you develop trust. You hear their problems, you take care of their problems, you do your job. You're not above them, you're not better than them. You are elected to represent them, because you can't have 24,000 people in front of the microphone at a time. Right. That's how the political system works. And there are those sitting in seats right now that have very short memories of how that system's supposed to work.
Do you think that's just a result of the times that we're in, or has there just been a big disconnect?
No, I think that's a result of we keep recycling the same people over and over in these political positions, and they sit there so long that they begin to think that they're above people. That's what I think. I think that if and on that note, I'm not trying to bag on our current elected officials like that, because there comes a point, and I understand this because it's it happens sometimes in business, where you get burnt out or you get numb to things. Sure. And it affects the way that you communicate with people and the way you deal with people, because it's like, oh, this is the 25th problem of the day, and you're just smoked, you're just overwhelmed with it. And I understand that happens. But that's why when you're voting, you got to make sure that you got a person sitting up there with broad shoulders, and you got to make sure that you got somebody that is I'm trying to think of the politically correct term, that is I'll say motivated enough to tackle those problems and run them down. And you're not just going to push them to the side and hope that the people go away. And you see this come out in the meetings. You see the infighting. You see people lined up. I'm going to get my 3 minutes because you have to let me. Well, that's insane. Like, what? Okay, I'm going to force this 3 minutes on you, and then you see them cut people off midstream, and it's this constant tension of, I don't like you, you don't like me, but I'm going to get what I need to say on the record. That is not how this thing is supposed to work. Not even a little bit. Those people sitting in the audience are supposed to say, those are the people we put up there and we trust that they're going to make the right decision. Now, again, are you going to make somebody mad along the way? Yeah, 100%, because you can't make everybody in the masses happy. One's on one side, one's on the other, and you got to pick the direction that you feel is best for for the largest majority of people and for the county as a whole, and you have to move. And if that leaves some people upset, the only thing you can do is explain your position to those people and hope that they trust you enough to understand that, well, maybe there's something there and I need to look at this. And that's what trust and honesty does for you. That transparent word you talk about, that's a slimy political word that people use to say, well, you should vote for me. And I don't like it, because outside of the election season, how many people do you bump into shopping at Walmart and they say, well, I'm a very transparent person? No, you don't. No, because it's just something that you say to give them your 5-minute elevator pitch of, I want your vote, and then I'm never ever gonna talk to you again.
Yeah.
And that's the sad truth.
In my day-to-day work, in my normal real job, we don't use that word. That's not a word. We talk about openness and communication and honesty. So I think that so when you talk about explaining your position, okay, I just want to just go back to what you touched on a little bit, you are absolutely right. In politics, there's going to be times that you make a vote and it may not be what the majority of the people want, for example. And there's a lot of things that can go into that. You know, they don't see budgets, they don't see numbers and all that kind of stuff. So how will you do a better job? Because I'm all for, if I have a vote about something, and this is just the way I approach it, if it's not, you know, what the majority of the people think we should be doing, I'm all for explaining that. And if people still don't understand that, I get that. I respect the taxpayers, you know, ideas of, well, we really would have liked this, but, you know, because I want to sleep at night. I want to make those decisions where I really feel like, in the long run, it's the best things for the taxpayers. So how would you, in those moments, you know, how would you address those things about explaining your position that would be maybe against the majority, but there's, you know, solid foundational numbers behind it? How do you think you would approach that, and why would that be important? Because you're saying that, you know, you need to have those conversations. So how does that build trust for the next vote?
I think that from what I've seen going through this campaign, this has been an experience. Again, this is my first time out, and I've only got, I mean, I have two gears. I'm either going or I'm not. And
have you been surprised?
I've been surprised. I've been shocked at certain moments. Because the more you dig into this stuff, the more that you find out. And, you know, I'll find something, I'm like, that doesn't seem right. And you start going down the rabbit hole of pulling documents and looking back and talking to people of, why is this way? And it's like, who made this call? like were you drinking that day?
Yeah.
I don't, you know. But then once it got stuck there, it just became, oh, well, this is the way we do it. And I'm like, why? You know, and I can give you a lot of examples of why. But back to your point, to answer your question, Brad, and I've been trying to do this for months now, and I'm going to kind of explain what's happened to me, and hopefully it'll help answer your question. I run into a lot of people that, and these are people that tell me they're supporting me. We want to vote for you. We like what you got to say, but we're mad. And I'm like, okay, I'll bite. Why are you mad? Well, these guys ain't doing their job, and they're all dirty, and this and that. These are just the random things that I hear. And I'm like, okay, again, I'm still with you. Like, explain to me, where's the part where we get to the point of this is why you're mad, this is why they're dirty, this is the thing they're doing wrong. Well, I don't really know. And I'm like, okay, so you're mad just to be mad. And so what I started doing was I started trying to make these videos and stuff on Facebook, and what I do is I'll go on there and I'll say, okay, here's how this works. These are the rules of the system. You know, everything in life has rules, and this stuff has a lot of rules.
So here's the way that it works. Here's the thing that we're talking about, and it could be, pick anything. It doesn't have to be projects. It could be whatever. But this is the system, and this is legally what we're allowed to do. And then I'll kind of follow that up with, this is what is currently happening, and this is what my thoughts are on it. Because I feel like in a lot of cases, people are upset, not because they're wrong, but because of a lack of knowledge. Because this stuff takes an immense amount of time. I mean, I have an immense amount of time in learning the system and learning why things happen, learning why certain rules and things are on the books. And those people don't always have the time. You know, if you're working a job, sometimes 2 jobs, you got a couple kids, you're running back and forth to the ballpark, and both mom and dad are working, and you got, I mean, people have loaded plates these days. And the last thing on their mind is to dive into some county ordinances and, you know, do a little light reading. You know, it's not something on their agenda. So when you come back and you explain that, hey, we made this decision because of these other 5 things that maybe you didn't know about or didn't see, I think that cures a lot of the problem. Right there is understand, because I think that people have that aha moment where they step back and they're like, oh, I wasn't aware of that, but now that you've told me that makes a lot of sense. And that goes back to the communication side. I've preached, I hate that transparency word. I hate it more now after running through a campaign than, I mean, it literally just oozes slime, in my opinion. If somebody tells you, well, I'm all for transparency, you better hold your pocketbook a little closer, folks, is all I got to tell you. But I like communication and procedure, and with that comes honesty. I want to do things the way the state or the Fed says we're supposed to do things. Then I want to tell you all about it so that you not just tell you what I did, but tell you in a manner so that you understand what just happened. And I want to tell you about it honest. If I go up there and I make a vote and I can't step out in front of 100 people and tell you exactly what I just did, I'm wrong. I'm 100% wrong. And that is 100% of why people are so upset right now. And they don't even know, you know, case in point. And I said I wasn't going to talk about, you know, anything outside the government, but I will for a second, because I kind of feel like people are getting accused of things that they shouldn't be getting accused of. You know, I hear all the time, oh, well, these guys are up there, they're doing stuff illegal. No, they're really not. They're not doing anything they get thrown in jail for. Now, does the lack of communication make it a little unethical? I believe so. But then, you know, you get the Facebook warriors on there when they're all geared up and sharpening their axes, and they want to attack, you know, politicians. They want to attack projects. I see them, you know, right now they're burning the crosses over Temple over here. And you know, here's the thing is the latest one was 100% legitimate, and that's what I talk about. Understand what you're seeing, because when people go down this road, they're like, well, I don't like it, and I don't like it no matter what. But you know, here the last meeting that we had, there was a community crossings grant for paving that came down. You remember that? Temple was awarded it, and good on them. I'm glad they got it. It's an in-county company that pays in-county taxes and employs the in-county people, and they got it legitimately. You know, there were 3 sealed bids up there. They opened them. Temple was the low bidder. Temple got it. Okay, Temple, go forth, do good work. Glad you got it. We'll see you on the next bid. There is absolutely nothing there to be upset about. You know, and that's what I'm talking about. Being able to, I want people, the general public, to have enough of an education to be able to look at this stuff and understand when something's truly being shady or being hidden from them, and when it's just routine business, because they're getting upset about both right now.
Well, and I think that's a good point about process. You know, that's something that again, I'm just talking about what I know from my elected office, and process is the best way to ensure that everything is being done the right way.
100%.
And you follow the process. I'm that way in my day-to-day job, my normal job process. You got to process. There's for a reason. But I agree with you. There a lot of people, if they get mad at, say, candidate Joe Smith, if they're mad at him and he does something they disagree with, but then he follows the process and does something the right way, and just maybe because of their personal bias, he's still going to be doing the wrong thing. Yeah. So, there's a lot of that, and I think social media adds to that. I do. But the best way to combat that is just follow the process. But when you talk about that, I think using the word illegal is easy to do. And I think that's kind of easy. And that's another way to get people to be on your side. It's like you don't have to... if you think about things, you don't have to have a strong argument. Just you say, well, that's illegal. And then people are like, what? Oh, yeah. And but people have got to understand that also, if it's not illegal, then it can still be unethical. And so there's that gray area, so to speak, where I think that's where people get in trouble, tend to navigate in the unethical part, and then that makes other people who are not navigating that way and following the process and doing what's right, you kind of get lumped in. And that's how there's good politicians. I hate that word because I view we're elected officials working for the taxpayers. I don't like that word politician because that's a little smarmy to me, as far as that goes. You are a politician, but at the same time, I don't want to fall in that. But I think there's a lot of elected officials that kind of get drug in that just because they're not always, they may be in the minority of stuff, and it may be easier just to do what's right, but then make die on the hills that they need to. But the social media has I think helped make that easier to everything's illegal. Then you can get on the bandwagon or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that dismisses, if you do something right here, that's okay that makes it okay not to do something right here. I think people need to understand the process, and it is a lot of work to do your research and be informed. But you're always, Wes, going to have those people that their best friend says it's this way. So how do you talk to those taxpayers?
There's some people you can't talk to. I'm just being, again, I like honesty, and some you just can't, because some people thrive. I call it thriving on drama.
Oh yeah.
And I don't care. You could repaint the lines over here in the Walmart parking lot, and they didn't like the color. Or I could get elected to office, and I could do something that they don't like. There are people out there, and they just like it, and I can recognize that, and I understand. I've dealt with those kind of people in the past, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them. They like it. It's like TV for them, and but I will tell you something else though. It's hard for people to be dramatic without doing a little learning, and because they want to live in the drama and they want to be right is what they want. Well, in order for you to be right, you got to learn the rules of the game, and you got to learn about what's going on. So I try to look at the positive, the small victories and things, and hey, if you want to throw 30 seconds of drama at me and you spent 2 hours learning about your local government and how things are going, well, I think I'm winning. I think I'm doing my job. Mm-hmm. Hey, we can, whatever, you can say whatever you want. I brought one more citizen into the fold of not just sitting here and saying, oh, well, I don't know what's going on. But they actually understand. Now, whether or not they did it for the right reasons, whatever. I don't care. And that's where I'm trying to bring everybody to. And I will say that, you talk about Facebook. I use Facebook a lot because I can get a message out to a lot of people. Everybody's got a phone in their hand these days. Yeah. And, let's just be honest, printer paper is expensive nowadays. Yeah, so it's an easier way, and I've started doing these videos and stuff. And one thing that I did, I just made a video about it the other evening, and I said, look, these are, I even hate the word politics, but these are politics, and let's not get I understand people have strong feelings, but let's not get so deep into this that we say things we can't take back, or we ruin relationships, because you know the people that we're talking about are still your friends, your neighbors, the other citizens in the county. And I would feel terrible if somebody ruined a relationship that maybe they'd had for years over me, or over the other guy, or over something. It's just not worth it, folks. And I don't want to see that. And I'm pretty sure that I'm speaking for everyone in the local government and everyone that's currently running, and say that they don't want to see that either. We want you, you know, I've said it again and again, and I'm probably, you know, it's probably because I'm new, and it's probably because I'm it's my first time rolling through this, and I don't really care. But if you don't agree with me, vote for the other guy. Just as long as you get out and vote, but do it in the right way. You know, we don't have to get on, and we don't have to be ugly to one another. The process is set up for us to talk, and you to make a determination of who you think you agree with and who you trust more, and you go cast your vote. And that's where your power lies, to make your best attempt to help get that person that you believe in that position to represent you. It's not a mud fight. It's none of that. We don't have to hate each other over, and I've seen that. I mean, for the last couple of years now in our county politics, and you've got, like, it's almost like encampments. One's on one side, one's on the other, and they're just waiting to go to battle. And I'm like, this is so wrong on so many levels.
And I think you bring up a good point, and that was gonna actually, that's a good segue into my question that I was going to ask about. I think we vilify people that maybe just disagree with us on maybe one point. Suddenly they're our enemy, we vilify them or whatever. But let's talk about cooperation. So there needs to be excellent communication and cooperation between the council and the commissioners.
Agreed.
So when you mentioned something that there's, you know, people line up on a side, but a lot of times when you're cooperating or talking about things and you're trying to work with someone that's on the other side of an issue, how do you get that cooperation, and how would you work through that? Because there's people that will, as soon as you're even trying to work with someone that's on the other side, then they're like, oh, well, they agree with them, you know, that type of thing. So how would you navigate through that, and why do you think, or where do you think the council and commissioners can cooperate a little bit better?
I'm going to go the long way around on this one, because I got a couple other points that I can make with this as well.
Okay, good.
So, you know, we talk about words a lot, and words have power, and words have meaning. That's all people in politics use, is words. And then, you know, when you get to the grander stages, maybe a skosh of money, but that's it. They talk. And I don't like the word politician, not in the least. And this is what I will tell the people that are out there listening. If you elect me, you are not getting a politician. You are electing a leader, because that is the only thing that I know how to do. They started teaching me that at a very young age. I've continued to do it through the businesses that I've owned. And kind of moving to your point, Brad, humility is a learned skill. And part of being a good leader is being humble enough to understand that you are not always the smartest guy in the room. And that is just a plain fact. You know, I know,
okay.
And that's fine.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I know a lot about certain things, and there are things that I'm just ignorant to. You know a lot about certain things. I'm sure there's things you're ignorant to. That's just it just depends on the person and what your background comes from.
Yeah.
And I have said from the beginning, you know, you got what, 7 on the council, correct? So you got 7 councilmen sitting up there. You got 3 commissioners. Well, even if it's something that, you know, the commissioners can vote on their own, there's nothing wrong with having a conversation, because, you know, 10 smart people versus 3 smart people is usually, as long as we're all being nice to one another, incites a better conversation about the way forward. Because, you know, I could be convinced that, hey, we need to do this thing and this is the way forward and this is going to be great for the county, and maybe you've got that one thing that I just hadn't thought about. Or, you know, perhaps we run into a problem and there are really none of the commissioners that have a background in where that problem lies, but maybe somebody on the council does. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out. We're all supposed to be there for the same reason, which is to represent the people and the betterment of the county. And regardless of who has this power or whose money this is or what, you know, well, we can do this unilaterally without you. I've heard that. I'm like, what? Like, I mean,
well, and historically, we have seen that to where it's like, well, we summoned you here just to tell you we don't need you to do this. We're just gonna FYI thing, and that's kind of insulting in my opinion. When it's like, maybe that, like you said, maybe that's true, but at the same time, it's just like, let's talk about this at least, and you know, I think you've got to give whatever the elected office is, you need to give them that, whoever worked for that they are a duly elected official by the voters in Washington County. So you've got to, yes, it is kind of, so sorry, that's just a,
you know,
a thing to me, because I think that if it's just the formality of you just want to tell me what you're doing, then email me and don't summon me, you know, that type of thing. So anyway, sorry.
I will use this analogy with that, because I can go home right now and I can do whatever I want to do, spend whatever money I want to spend, and I don't have to tell my wife nothing, not a thing. But I promise you, I will pay for that later. So when we start talking about not working together,
Jennifer's probably listening. So.
Yeah, well, no, she's subbing over at the school today. So
well, she'll listen to this.
Yeah,
later,
she'll be listening to this later, and she'll get a giggle out of that. But you know, in the spirit of working together, that's the way it needs. You know, there has to be this understanding and this willingness to work together. And no, I might not need you, but I want your opinion because I respect it, and in the spirit of us all working together to get to this, you know, because it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about the other people sitting up there, it's about doing the right thing for the other 24,375 people that are floating around here just trying to go to work and have a better life. It's about them.
Yeah.
And no, I think we do a terrible job of working with one another.
And that's a good point. That's something that, you know, and I'm just trying to be relevant to what's going on right now. That is a hot topic, but the highway project is one that is, you know, communication has been, you know, there's been issues and there's been people questioning, but to your point about things, just because I can do something, you know, the council, we did go back and we questioned whether it was legal to do the land swap, for lack of a better term. But you know, we had attorneys look at that, and it was not illegal. It was in the commissioner's scope to do that, but a lot of that could have been put off because they had attorneys that had the state statute. Whether you agree with that or not, it's a legal thing that can be done, but a lot of the misunderstanding, there's still going to be people that, you know, my opinion of it was, I wasn't a fan of it, but it's not illegal. And there you get into, well, is it the right thing to do or whatever, but you talk about the legality, they could do it, but the communication could have changed how that trajectory of that piece of it. I'm not talking about the whole project. I'm just talking about that piece of it, to where that communication could have said, hey, you know, yes, we don't need you, but this is the state statutes. This is part of that, and that approach. And so I think a lot of times that communication can help on, and vice versa. If the council does something that we really don't need the commissioners to do, we're holding the checkbook or whatever, I think you just need to be, talk about that. This is what we've decided to do as a body, but get input or whatever, because all of us, all 10 of us, are representing taxpayers. So I was just, that's just an example tied into what you were talking about. I don't need you to do this, but let's talk about it anyway, and let's be respectful of everybody working together.
That's the well, and it's one of those things. Everybody has a different background, and you really need the ability to lean on those people within our county government that have those backgrounds. I mean, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs of large-scale farming operations because I'm not a farmer. There's all these different little areas that when you start, I think that's being a successful leader is not always you. I keep trying to say that. It's understanding how to put the right people together in the room, and when you can do that, wonderful things come out of it.
And I think the second part of that is, when you can do that, that's wonderful. But when you've got those subject matter experts, it's okay to not be the smartest kid in the room, how I've always said
100% agree.
But it's then also, whether you agree with this person or not, using their experience and knowledge.
Yes.
Take the personal out of it, take the egos out of it. It's okay, because we've got varied, and I'm just going to use the council because that's the folks that we've got all kinds of different walks of life there. But we've got farming experts, and we've got an HR person in me. We've got a numbers person and a CPA. It's all those things.
Exactly.
And everybody has their strengths, and you've got to do that. So when it comes to, I'm going to kind of segue, because this is something that I think that is important for the voters to listen to, is, the council does the budget. We approve the budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
The commissioners have a big chunk that's their budget. Now, at the end of the day, we could say as a council, well, do what you want, but we even approve the commissioner's budget, right?
Yeah.
But why wouldn't we work together on that?
Sure.
So when it comes to, there's a lot to the budget. And I know you've been a business owner, you've been in the military, you understand things. The county budget is complex at times, right?
Yeah.
So adding to the communication between the council and the commissioners, what things that do you see when it comes to budget time that is important for the commissioners to look at, as far as how they can work with the council and we can get the best budget for the taxpayers?
That's a big question.
That is.
Brad.
I'm sorry.
I don't think we have enough time on here to cover that.
Start with how you would approach the commissioner's budget. Because to explain to people that, county highway garage, a county highway department, there's all the buildings in the county owned property, disposal of county property or maintaining.
How much is that? Do you roughly know?
I can get the number on that. I don't know it off the top of my head. I don't want to give out.
I think I understand kind of where you're
going. It's a good chunk of the overall budget.
And I will say this. I've been putting together lists since I started campaigning, and like I said, when you go down the rabbit holes, you find 10 more things. It's like, really?
Yeah.
But a lot of the things that we have issues with are a matter of structure, is what I'll call it. I don't even think it's a matter of money, because I think there are ways that we can twist and move money to solve a lot of problems at a no cost.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. Because there's, and I'm not saying that just because when I say there's a small problem, I'm talking in terms financially. And, it might be something that it doesn't take a lot of money to fix it. It just takes somebody giving it the attention and a vote and a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Then we go back and we talk about some of the ways that the contracts are ran or our services ran or whatever the case. we're not being very procedural on that at times. And I think there are opportunities there to streamline that a little bit and save some good money. So when people ask me, well, you know, how do you intend to fix these little things? Well, if I fix this big thing, then that puts a considerable amount of money back to the general fund, which should be able to fund a lot of these little things. So one kind of plays off the other, and I've got some very deep discussions, whether that be about county employees and you know what their pay scales are, what their insurance rates look like. I don't think they're where they need to be. I think there need to be some disparity studies done there and bring us back to the point we need to be at, so that we stop either A, losing good qualified people, or B, we're just taking advantage of them or screwing them over. Because I think that depending on your personal situation at home, that does happen at times, whether it's from a pay standpoint or from an insurance standpoint.
Retention is something that you know, I'm an HR guy, so retention is important, and it keeps everything firing on all cylinders. You know, that when you're not constantly training new people, and I'm excluding the elected officials, I'm talking about our county employees that are in the trenches every day, and I will be one of the ones that say we've got great county employees. We really do. We got people that really take great care of the taxpayers in this county, and we've got great services, medical services, and all of that. I think the thing though that we've got, and I agree, we need to make sure that our employees are paid what is really comparable, or even better, I would say better than those around us. And I think studies for that are important. But I think also, you know, there's not an infinite number of tax dollars out there. We got to grow the tax base. But in addition to that, we got to compare apples to apples. And I know people talk about people are leaving to go to Floyd and Clark County. Well, if you look at the county budgets, and you can go online and look all this, if you look at the tax dollars that those two counties have, we can't compete directly with that. We can get closer, but we can't be shoulder to shoulder in those cases. So if you exclude those, the other counties around, we've got to take a serious look, and I agree with that. We just got to make sure that we are comparing apples to apples, but we are truly giving our county employees what they deserve, and we need to get them there. I agree with that. But there's a lot of things that go into retention, you know, insurance, and there's other stipends. There's all kinds of things that you can think about. So I think that's something though that that's not an easy conversation. But the communication hasn't been, we've quit talking to our department heads and our employees, or quit listening. So how would you, because you and I have had this conversation before about getting county employees, you know, up to where they need to be. How do you think that process starts to get us, the 10 of us, I'm going to lump us and the commissioners together just because we do the budget and together, even though, you know, we do the final vote, but we have those considerations. Where do we start to get those conversations going?
I think the way that we've been doing it, I mean, I know you're sitting on the board, so no offense to current company, but I think it's a pretty lazy way of moving the bar. Because we walk in and we say, hey, we're going to give X percent raise to these county employees across the board. Well, some of them are probably grossly underpaid, but some of them are probably exactly where, based upon the job they're doing, where they need to be. And, you know, and that's where the disparity studies come in. Whether we hire an outside source to come in and compare us to the surrounding companies with similar budgets, or if something's available through the state, which those are things that I'm currently running down, so I don't want to go too far into that side. But I think it needs to be targeted. Here are the 274 different types of jobs that we have within this county, and for each one, this is how he sits or she sits, pay-wise and benefit-wise, against others surrounding us. And it may be a deal where we have to go in 1 year, and some require raises and some don't. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't allow anybody to go backwards from where they're at. That's not very fair to people. But I think that before you can go to a blanket, percentage across the board, you need to really dive in and fix those individual jobs that maybe have been overlooked. Because if you're raising everybody, the disparity is still there.
Stays the same.
Yes, you need, and I'm not, what I'm about to say, I don't mean anything about any jobs or anybody, but if you go to a hospital, the doctor gets paid a little bit different from the janitor. And that's your choice to what job you want to do, and I respect both professions, but the bottom line to it is one makes a lot more money than the other. And as he should, because he's the guy that's cutting on me. So I want to, but you understand what I'm saying. And
absolutely.
Then you roll over from that. I just had a conversation with somebody working for Clark the other day, and if memory serves on what we're making here, this was in our highway department, I think there's about a $5 to $6 an hour disparity between the two, which I understand, we may not have their budget, but we can close that gap some, because there's something to be said too for being able to work 5 minutes from home, and I don't have the gas involved, I don't have to travel for an hour, I don't have to, there are other benefits that are involved. And then obviously the insurance side of things, that has been a sticking point for me, and I will tell you, if somebody puts me in that seat, my boots are in concrete on that one. Like, I will, not being able to have your spouse on your insurance is insanity. For those out there who may be in a position to affect this, I'm going to get closer to the microphone and I'm going to say it again for you. It is insanity. Okay? If my spouse is sick and I show up and I work hard every day, do my job, do what I'm supposed to do, based on what I'm told to do by you, okay, and then I have to come out of pocket, or I don't have the things I need to take care of my own family, I could tell you what Wes would have done. I would have quit a long time ago, and then I would have told you where to take that job and where to place it whenever I did leave, because that is very unfair. I understand that there are small businesses out there that don't offer insurance and don't, but these things going in. Okay? For a municipality, for a county to do that and say, oh, well, your wife's got cancer, or my wife's got lupus, or my wife, well, we hate that. Sorry. No. If you work hard, that's not how this county, this country is supposed to operate. And I feel strongly, very strongly, that with the proper effort and the proper research, that there is a solution to that problem at very, very little cost. Again, it goes back to a matter of effort, and sometimes you have to really search down what it is you're looking for to get the right thing, but getting that right thing is what's fair to these people. And like I said, there's a lot of things that are on my list that if you good people choose to put me in this office, that I want to have discussions about. This is not a discussion point. This is going to happen come hell or high water, and because it's not right. And when you come across those things as a leader, sometimes you got to make that stand. And I don't really care if it's a popular stand or not, but I know people personally that are working within the county. I'm a general contractor. I deal with people, in county positions all the time. I know them personally, and I know how it affects their lives. And no, we're going to run that one down. And that's a promise. Like, I will have answers on that front. So yeah, to answer your question, that's kind of how it is. You got me a little bit angry.
That's
well,
that's good.
It upsets me.
I think that, well, and I think there's other people that would 100% agree with that. I'm an HR guy. I'm all about benefits and things like that. And I think more than anything that if you're not at least trying to offer the best packages, whatever they are, then you've let the employees down.
I'm about doing the right thing and being fair to people.
The thing to that, And I'm not, this is not a cop-out. I'm not saying that this is, I've agreed with not being able to provide that. I'm not saying that. When those conversations happen, especially with insurance, there's a lot of things. I'm one of those that, I would love to see us to have comparable insurance packages to people doing the same job. Absolutely. That's absolutely. The spouse is one that whoever, not pointing fingers, but, historically we have not researched that enough, in my opinion. I'm not blaming anybody, and, I know I'm not trying to get in the commissioner's lane because that's theirs, but I can definitely have an opinion about that. But the other thing about that is there's a lot of conversations around that. Is me personally, are the contribution levels where they need to be? And what I mean by that is we've got taxpayers that are paying for the insurance for our employees, but at their jobs is, if they're contributing more to their insurance, are the contribution levels, and I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole, but are theirs higher than what they're providing for county employees? And that's something that a consideration needs to be.
That's the homework that needs to be done.
And you can find, finding the right plan where it's affordable and all this, and the contribution levels. That's just the HR guy in me, and the taxpayer. It's like, I know what my split is, and I work for a company that has great insurance and great benefits. So I want other people to have the same benefits, things like that. But I'm providing coverage that maybe I'm contributing more for mine. And it's just a whole lot of things. But I think the important thing, in my opinion, is that we're willing to have these tough conversations, that you're willing to take a stand. This is something that's important to me. And I think that the voters need to understand where all of the candidates are on things. And when you said, well, it might not be a popular idea, but I think it's more important for someone who is trying to be an elected official, wanting to be an elected official, to be willing to not just do the popular thing, but do the right thing. So I think that's something that needs to. I think
I agree 100%, and that's I
didn't try to go down a rabbit hole.
I've got a list of nothing but hard conversations, because that's where most of the problems lie. I'm not doing what I'm doing so that I can go up here to the ballpark and snap some pictures of me and throw it on the internet and say, look at me, here's your elected politician doing what he's supposed to be doing. No,
I only did that once, Wes. That's just
well, I mean,
no, I'm kidding.
It goes over me. Like there are things that need to be fixed, and again, I know that it's a lot, and I'm not saying that the people that are sitting there right now haven't done some wonderful things over time, because they have, but there's just a lot of it, and it takes a lot of time. And I think there are some glaring issues, though, and some that when I go around and I talk to people that have really hit home, and that's one of them, and it makes me almost angry that if a person goes out and they work hard every day, that's what we tell people in this country. If you go out and you work hard every day, everything will be fine. It'll be taken care of. Well, you know what? In that instance, it's not, because that guy or that girl is still going home to that sick spouse that's not getting the medications they need because they can't afford them, or they're paying for them out of their pocket, which they can't afford. They're not getting the level of treatment and that flows over into your job and how you do your job.
Absolutely.
And that's just one point of 100, like I said, that's sitting on this list. But no, I absolutely want to have these conversations, and I want to run these things down and try to fix them for the people that show up and go to work for us every day.
And like I said, I think that hard work needs to be done. I agree with that. And again, I will be one. We've got great county employees that do things that I'm not qualified to do or wouldn't want to do, but they come to work every single day and do the right thing. And I think that there's a lot to be said about. Sometimes you've got to the ones doing the heavy lifting. Those are the ones that sometimes get ignored first, and that's not who should be ignored first.
They are 100%, and there are some others, And you know, I'm going to be back on here a few more times, and you know, we can jump back over, but it's, you know, your county employees, your local small businesses, you know, and when we go back into the contracting, and I'm not going to go down that hole today because we'll save that topic for the next time that I come on, but you know, there's a process to involve a whole lot more of our small businesses out there, particularly our construction small businesses, our maintenance small businesses, to do things for the county that we're going to pay to have done anyway. And all it takes is just a little tweak of your process, and that's what I call low-hanging fruit. Those things, they cost no money. It's just change your procedure just a little bit of how you maintain rosters of people, how you take bids, how you do these things. And you know, obviously you need to understand who it is that you're talking to, and the state puts out guidelines for how to do that based on dollar thresholds. You know, you can't take two guys in a truck and give them a $10 million contract because they're not insured, they're not bonded, they're not capable of doing that work, and that's part of what the state calls being technically proficient on a contract. But there are a lot of things that they can do, that they can work in their backyard, you know, in the place where they're paying taxes both personally and from their business, you know. So that kind of goes along with taking care of your people that are out there, kind of like what we were talking about with county employees, you know. Let them do their job, let them do the things they're there for, and take care of them.
And don't be a hindrance to them.
Yes, yes, 100%.
Well, this has been a good show, and we've got a couple of more times that you'll be on. I know you can talk about what you want to, but I'd like to hear before the election, and we don't have time this morning, but what are one or two things you think are the biggest challenge for the commissioners that need to be maybe looked at?
The biggest for
the board or the county in general, maybe.
Challenges you think the commissioners need to fix or look at that would make the biggest impact for the county?
Oh, well, I think, you know, we could, it's kind of like, what was that commercial they used to have on TV? Why can't we all just get along? You know, I think that would be a good starting point.
Well,
is talking through some things. I think that the contracting and communicating with people is a big one, and I think, you know, if you communicate well, you'd be surprised how many more people are backing you. And there's so many things that I feel like are, and maybe they're not even doing it on purpose. Maybe it's just kind of the way that it worked out. But people feel like it's behind the curtain. Like you're doing all this stuff back here, and then you come out and it's all in favor, aye, and it's done. Well, what'd you do? Well, I just spent $5 million. Okay, thanks for coming out, Bob. You know, glad you could come to meeting today, and Bob has no idea what you just spent $5 million on. That's not right.
That's true.
I think that I mean, we talked about some of the other major issues that I'm looking at. You know, contracting practices, county employees, disparity studies, insurance. You know, these hard things to talk about, and I think that they're involved in that. But if I said any one thing tomorrow, close your mouth, listen to what other people are saying, actually respect it and digest it. Okay, and then have a good professional conversation about it in forum, in front of the public, the way that you were supposed to, and make a good decision. And then explain to the public why you made that good decision, and you would be amazed how people's reactions and how the looks on their faces will turn. And that's what I intend to do if given this seat, is bring the public back into this in a manner where they trust and they believe in their local leadership, and that's something that's been lost, and I think, and that's a hard thing to regain. But if you want to know where I think the work needs to be put in, that's it in a nutshell right there.
And it's not just, you could go to just about any board in probably any county around the state or any state, but anymore a board will come out, like you said, somebody will make a motion, they take a vote, and they've hired somebody, they've taken on a project, and as far as the public, you don't know anything about it. You don't know how much was spent. You don't know who was just hired. what they're, you know, anything about it, and they go on to the next thing.
You know, that's
ingredients. Right now, new customers can get 20% off site-wide with the code BIGVOX at shopmando.com. That's the code BIGVOX at shopmando.com.
You better listen up. Hear what we say. 'Cause I'm here to tell you, we gotta find a way. Yeah.
Broadcasting from the real world, The Rick Burgess Show.
All right, America, brand new hour. Thanks for being with us. Our number 888, the number 6, Big Vox. Same number you can use to text us as well on Text Nation. Chatters there in Tube City on the YouTube option. And, of course, we also give you an opportunity to call us on the same number if we do unscreen again. Yeah. If you missed the first 3 hours catching on the Daily Archive today, or if all you got time for is a best of hour, that's available too. Speedy, Greg Adler, all here. Artemis is home. Yeah. Greg just looked up and pointed out that big years.
I have tax dollars in there, but we're spending other people's money, and that's really, I think, to me, that's been, as a council, we're working to make sure we are having those discussions. People kind of have an understanding, and we've tabled stuff until the next meeting to where we can get more information as well, even for taxpayers. And so and you got to stay in your lane. And what I mean by that is some people have pushed things through and tried to exclude different groups, and we're not about that. We're about making sure the commissioners are doing what they're supposed to do, we're doing what we're supposed to do, work together, and then just be open about it and tell people what's going on.
I told you at the beginning of this thing, humility is a learned skill.
Yeah.
And there are those amongst us that could use a little bit more training. I'm just saying. And I understand that. But yes, the working together, and people recognize that. I mean, when people watch, you know, whether they're watching a recording, whether they show up to meetings, they recognize professionalism. It's what they expect out of the people, not just locally, but I mean all the way up. You see the things that are happening on national news. These are like congressmen and senators acting like toddlers, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, do you understand the people who have sat in those seats before you, and then you're going to act this way?
Yeah.
You know, there is a level there that the public expects from you, and
true.
And I think that you're doing them a disservice by not presenting yourself in that way and having those open professional conversations. Even if you don't like the other person or don't agree with them, you owe that to the people.
Well, I agree with that 100%. You may not agree with them, you may not like them, and I've said that about myself. You may not like me, but we're going to treat each other with respect, and that's what the taxpayers and the voters expect.
Yeah. Well, thank you both guys for coming in. Wes, it's been a pleasure having you in here, and Brad, thank you for adjusting your schedule to come in. But even though this was a paid show, we do have our regular sponsors, which we'll hear from in just a minute. Brad, would you mention?
We've got Meadowview Healthcare, Walmart, Salem Crossing, Americans for Prosperity, Mama Rose's, Fox for Lee Wealth Management, Dr. Black's Eye Associates, Dr. Mindy Gunn, Marshall Monument, Springer and Springer Insurance, Schneck Hospital, Temple and Temple, and Wes Bowers for Commissioner.
Awesome. And we'll see you, I guess, next Monday?
Next Monday, I'll be back.
Okay, awesome. Well, you guys have a good day.
Thank you.
At Papa John's, get your everyday favorites for just $6.99 each when you order 2 or more items from the Papa Pairings menu. When you order more, you save more. Choose from medium one-topping pizzas, boneless or traditional wings, papadillas, breadsticks, cheese sticks, garlic knots, and desserts. It's easy to order all your favorites when they're just